Hey, when the Rams lose 34-17 to the Cardinals in the regular season, then start to worry. RamView.
Out there, but let's blow him off the line of scrimmage. Headline,
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the August 21st, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. KistlerLawFirm.com, that's one word. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Okay, we got NFL news, Ram news, and we're going to remember today a little bit of Monte Jackson, Maxie Bond, and of course, the legendary Dwight Scales. But first, let's just take a brief look at the NFL. Rams lost to the Raiders. Everyone's up in arms. Oh, I got to reassess my Rams views and all these things because maybe they're not going to be that great. Well, when you come out and you play without Aaron Donald, when you come out without Ernest Jones, when Jordan Fuller's not playing, when John Johnson is just getting his feet back under him in the Rams system, when Jacoby Bryant is not playing, Ahkello Witherspoon's not playing, when you're seeing THT develop, but they're running other guys in there. Yeah, of course this defense is going to look not so good, and it's not going to be good. It's just not. Even with great players, the scheme itself prevents it from being a great defense. But it's going to be okay, and it's going to be rough at first. I still, in my projections, I'm shaking now a little bit in terms of that Bengal game without if Joe Burrow doesn't play. But if Joe Burrow plays the first 9 games of the season, I see the Rams at best going 3-6. There's going to be struggles until you get to the back half of the calendar. And so anyone that's like jumping off the Rams thing, oh, I don't know, man, about the Rams, gosh, get some vision, right? Or just share that with the low-hanging fruit, with the riffraff who really are not invested in studying the game or watching the game. Save that for your sports bar, right? I remember I was working at a restaurant many years ago when I was 19, 20 years old, and it was the Bears 85 season, right? And I was working with a bunch of chump waiters, Oh, man, you want to talk about a vapid group that virtue signaled everything before the word virtue signaling was around. And everyone's talking about, this and that. And there was one guy that was a devout Vikings fan, and I knew he was legit because I could talk Tommy Kramer with him. I was a Ram fan. And then there was this one guy, his name was Mitch, and he comes and says, oh, man, I'm a Bears man. I've always been a Bears man. And I'm looking at the guy who was a bartender that was a Viking guy. So you really think he's a Bears man? Do you think he knows anything about Bobby Douglas, Gary Huff, Brian Piccolo that he hasn't seen on the movie of the week? Or does he know anything about who Doug Buffon is, But he was a Bears fan. Those are the kind of fans that get worked up when the Rams lose 34-17 without their starters against the Raiders in the second week of preseason. Don't get worked up about it, okay? Don't get worked up. Moving right along. In regards to the Raiders, everyone has seen Jimmy G, right? You like Jimmy G? I've never liked Jimmy G. I've always felt Jimmy G was a bit overrated. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But everyone knows what Jimmy G is. He's a competent quarterback. But the guy the Raiders need to dance with is Aiden O'Connell. Someone spiked my soda. Is Aiden O'Connell. Every time I see what the Raiders are talking about, I get the feeling of the wolf from Pulp Fiction when he's asking about the car. Is there anything I need to know? Does it smoke? Does it stall? Don't give me any of that Brian Hoyer stuff. And that's the vision I have. It's like Raider fans are saying, hey, man, tell me what I need to know about Aiden O'Connell because I want to see him play. I know what Jimmy G is. He's going to be hurt by week 4 again. And but I want to see Aiden O'Connell. So does he smoke? Does he stall? Don't give me any of that Brian Hoyer stuff. If there's anything that turns into canceled television, it's like Brian Hoyer taking snaps in the preseason. Honestly, if there's anything that can drive me away from a game, it's Brian Hoyer. It's like, oh, I've seen this guy. It's like watching a repeat of Happy Days or something. Raiders need Josh Jacobs. They need him if they're going to do anything special. But to get through the season, they might just have enough there just to get by. And here's the thing about Josh Jacobs. He's only hurting himself at this point because guess what? Guess who could franchise tag him in 2024? Yeah, the Raiders. So come in and get your dough. You're not going to get this year back. Come in and get your dough. All right. Word about Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson played well. Russ is not washed. Hey, the problem with Russell Wilson to me wasn't that he couldn't throw the ball anymore, that he couldn't move anymore. The problem is the decisions he's making. So physically, I don't think Russell Wilson is washed, but mentally, to me, he looks spent. And I'll go back again to week 1 last year, right? Russ wanted out of Seattle because he just wanted to be him, right? He didn't want to be hemmed in any longer by Pete Carroll's defensive and protective philosophy with the football. Russ wanted to cook, right? And, instead in that first game against Seattle back home, when Russ is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Russ just goes off meekly when Nathaniel Hackett sends out a kicker to kick a 66-yard field goal on the road in Seattle to win the game on a fourth and long. If I'm Russ Wilson, I'm the guy. I'm supposed to be the guy. I wave that guy back. I wave the kicker back off and say, no, this is my show. I'm calling this. I'm a Hall of Fame quarterback. And he is. But there's something about Russ Wilson that just doesn't look right to me. Something's off between the ears. And yeah, physically, I'm not saying it is what it is, but mentally, he just looks like he's spent. He just looks like he's spent. And people can stay in positions for a long time and function at a high level, even when they're spent. And that's just something to think about. Brock Purdy took the field. And this weekend, Brock Purdy looked good, And what happens if a guy like Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl? I mean, this dude really breaks the template. When you start looking at quarterbacks and Super Bowl champions, right? You're running down the list. Mahomes, Stafford, Brady, working your way back. Foles is an outlier, but Foles isn't exactly Brock Purdy. You go back, Peyton Manning, okay, end of his career. He kind of sneaks one in there. 2011, you got Eli Manning. You got Joe Flacco sticking one in there. Russ Wilson's a little different. Russ Wilson was drafted higher than Brock Purdy, but and a little more mobile than Brock Purdy and a little bigger playmaker. But I was wondering if maybe Brock Purdy fits more of the Drew Brees template a little bit in 2009. But drafting a guy in the 7th round and getting him to become a Super Bowl quarterback, if this guy pulls that off, man, can you imagine how the spin rooms and the analytic rooms are just going to start going crazy in terms of how you analyze these quarterbacks. And I'll tell you what it is. It's decision-making. It all boils down to decision-making. And Brock Purdy is a decision maker. When you're watching Wolford for the Rams last year, heck, you're even watching Trey Lance this August. You're seeing somebody that's hesitant. They won't pull the trigger, right? If you ever read The Shootist by Glendon Swathart or saw the movie with John Wayne, there's a line in there that the John Bernard Books, he's the key figure. He's an aging gunfighter. When someone asks him, he goes, "How did you get in so many gunfights and always win?" And he said, well, it's not exactly about being how fast you are or how accurate you are. He says it's being willing. It's like he said, when the moment comes, some men will draw a breath or bat an eye before pulling the trigger. He says, I won't. And when you look at a quarterback like Brock Purdy, he's a guy that doesn't draw a breath or bat an eye. He makes a decision immediately. And that's honestly what the great ones do, or potentially great ones do. I think the jury's still out. We're going to see what teams think of him going forward this year in terms of how they play him. There's film on him, and they've had a year to think about it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. But yeah, Trey Lance isn't going to be the guy. And honestly, again, it could be Trey Lance and they'd still beat the Rams, right? So we'll go from there. I was clicking around the channels. I was trying to watch Seahawks Cowboys, and I'm sorry. Nominate me for Sexist of the Month, or Sexist of the Year, Misogynist, whatever you want. I can't handle a female voice announcing a football game. Can't do it. I mean, I can barely handle Doris Burke or somebody calling an NBA game, but I don't like the NBA, so I put up with it. But Kate Scott, I'm not saying she's a bad person, but I don't want to hear her calling a football game, and she's calling the preseason games for the Seahawks this year. And basically it boils down to this. A lot of people sing, but not everyone sings opera. You know what I mean? A lot of people can make movies, but they're not really a stage actor. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of people can read, but they can't read in front of the camera. And I'm not saying that Kate Scott doesn't work hard. I'm not saying she's not prepared. But like I said, some people can sing and some people can sing opera. Some people should stick to folk music. And honestly, for a football game, it really needs to be a male voice. I'll never get used to it. And it is immediate turn. It's like Kate Scott is as quick to make me change the channel as Beth Moans or Brian Hoyer. All right. That's how quick I'll change the channel when I hear those things. It's not that I don't like women in the booth. I thought Mina Kimes, I think she's a little oversensitive, but I thought she did a fair job in the booth. My favorite was Jeannie Zelasco from the old Extra 690 days. I have no problem with Hannah Storm, but there's just some places it just doesn't work, Chief. It doesn't work. So I'm going to flip the channel. Hope John Wolford as well. I brought up John Wolford, who got hurt. We're waiting to hear. I didn't follow up. I saw him go down over the weekend. Also, this weekend, got to see David Long, former Ram, play for the Raiders. He led them in snaps. He had 32 snaps on defense, and he graded a little above average in coverage, so good for him. I hope he gets some time there. Troy Hill signed with the Panthers. That's great news, because the last thing I wanted to see was Troy Hill come back to the Rams. And I want to give props to the McSneed corporation there, Sean McVay and Les Snead, in not bringing back a Troy Hill again. Thank you very much. I'll dance with Akilla Witherspoon all day. And then finally, news broke, was it last night or early this morning? Miles Jack retired, the former UCLA guy. He's only 27. He informed the Eagles that he was retiring. He was a second-round pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, had 6 good seasons there, and he was pretty solid. Rob, a Steeler fan who lives in Missouri, liked Miles Jack. And again, he's an off-ball linebacker. It shows the devalue of the position, how the position's been devalued. And he's 27. And, he says he doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't feel it anymore. So good for him in the sense that he says he saved his money. He just wants to get into something else. That's what you call using football before football uses you. You don't want football to use you, because then you're broken and battered when it's over, but using football until, maybe something better comes along. So it's kind of sad to see him go in one sense, because we liked him at UCLA. He's only 27, but good for him. Okay, so the Rams lost to the Raiders. I got some live viewers here on a Monday, on a Monday afternoon at 3:37. Thank you, whoever's on there. Say hi. I will say hi back. And if you have a question, throw me a question. No, someone asked, is this vodka in here? No, it's not. I just put some soda in here to wash my throat, because I get a little animated. All right, Rams news. We saw that Ram game on Saturday night. I don't know why people are upset. It is what it is. But I'll say this. Not exactly Brian Hoyer, but I don't need to see any more Brett Rippon. I'm not saying Brett Rippon's bad. I'm just saying I don't need to see any more of him. I was kind of hoping they just let Stetson Bennett finish the game on Saturday night. I'm for letting him play the entire game next week. I want him to get as many reps as possible. And if there's any change left over, give it to Dresser Wynn. Let him take a few snaps. But we know who Brett Rippon is. I want to see as much Stetson Bennett and see if Dresser Wynn is really worth a practice squad spot, which I don't get to make that decision, but I get to complain or praise that decision. So do you. Regarding Stetson Bennett, I kind of liked what I saw coming out of the game. Now, we know he didn't have a great game. He had some throws that were kind of questionable, but do you know what you do when you're a quarterback, and especially a rookie quarterback, when you have a miscue with the receiver? You know what you do? You take the hit, you fall on the sword, and you say, it was my bad. as someone who played quarterback at a very, very, very low level, I can tell you that's what you do. As someone who spent a lot of time around quarterbacks in my sports writing days, yeah, when you heard the quarterback say, "Hey, man, that was on me," and you were kind of wondering, why did he say that? That's what a quarterback does. The Stetson Bennett and Tyler Johnson miscues, experience-wise, I'm putting them on Tyler Johnson. I just am. I'm partial to quarterbacks, and I could be wrong. I mean, we're not dealing with Brian Hoyer here. It's Stetson Bennett, and I absolutely could be wrong. But the idea that Bennett comes out and says, "Hey, it was my bad," whether it was or not, I don't think it was. The idea that he comes out and says "my bad" is a quarterback that is mature, right? A quarterback has to be confident, borderline cocky, but also mature. And he has to be mature enough to recognize what's best for his relationship with his receiver and the team. Nothing is worse, and I've seen it all throughout my career. Quarterback throws a pick, goes Kyler Murray, shakes his head going off the field, or points at his receiver and says, "Oh yeah, he screwed up," as opposed to maybe sitting next to him on the bench, working out whatever didn't get worked out, but instead humiliating the receiver publicly. And for a guy that's 25, 26 years old, Stetson Bennett did a good job there. He did a really good job. Again, he may have been at fault, but my personal thing is knowing how much a quarterback has to study, and a quarterback like Bennett, who's not going to get by on his physical ability. He's not Anthony Richardson. I'm guessing he knew that playbook. And my feeling is that maybe Johnson took a wrong turn and hung Bennett out to dry, but Bennett was smart enough to know my relationship with him is more important than this moment, and it's also better for the team. I've been on a sideline where a quarterback literally threw a touchdown pass more than once. This happened more than once. And as the receiver caught the touchdown, they high-fived each other. They're on the bench afterwards, and the quarterback apologized to his receiver for not putting the ball in a better spot. It happens. When you're developing a relationship with the receiver, you say those things. And I think that pass, one in particular, the quarterback threw, the ball was up here, had to reach out for a little bit, as opposed to say right here on the run. And it wasn't a bad pass. It just wasn't a perfect pass. But the quarterback took the hit and said, "You know what? I'll do it better next time." And the receivers, and then it's good. In fact, if you see an old NFL Films clip of Joe Namath in Super Bowl III, there's a small clip of him apologizing to Jim Turner, the Jets kicker in Super Bowl III, for not getting the ball in a better spot before kicking a field goal. And but that was Namath, right? And that's what a quarterback does. And so I am really starting to like Stetson Bennett more and more each time I see him play. Regards to the running backs out there, hey, Ronnie Rivers is doing everything he can to make the team. I think Zach Evans will make the team. I really feel Royce Freeman is the odd guy out here. I think he's going to be unemployed soon. Maybe he circles back on the practice squad. The wide receivers, Scow, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Trammell, Lance McCutcheon. I think all those guys played. No one really stood out much. Xavier, was it Xavier Smith? He made a nice catch there and such. But I like Skowronek. I really do. I like Robinson. And I'm warming to Tyler Johnson. Trammell, I'd go either way on. But Lance McCutcheon, I really think it's farewell and adieu, right? Farewell and adieu to that 2022 preseason star, right? Because it's 2023 and new talents in the house. Maybe he makes it through waivers. He gets a practice squad spot. But I don't see Lance McCutcheon surviving to be here to go to Seattle with the team unless there's a certain injury. Okay, the tight ends room, right? Currently, Tyler Higbee and Bryson Hopkins look like they're all set. But barring an injury, how do the Rams not run with Davis Allen after his performance on Saturday night? That was a standout performance. And how do they keep Hunter Long around? I don't think there's room for Hunter Long. I think there's talk about him maybe going back on the PUP list or something. There's no room there. It's 4 tight ends. It's highly unlikely. It's just not going to happen. The Rams aren't going to keep 4 tight ends. Bradford, Kalanick, those guys are gone. Christian Sims is going to end up on the practice squad. And it's really down to Davis and Long, and Long's not getting on the field. Davis got on the field, and he made some fantastic plays the other night. So unless I'm ready to deal Hopkins or Higbee, I'm not risking Allen through waivers just to keep Hunter Long. So Hunter Long could be looking for a gig unless he goes on some IR or some pup list right now. The offensive line, Mike McAllister for the second straight game took every snap at center, and he has not graded well. I know the team likes him. That's why he's getting snaps. He's practice squad guy all over him. Steve Avila, 25 snaps. He didn't grade well as a run blocker, but his pass blocking was excellent. If I got a choice between watching Brian Hoyer throw the ball or Steve Avila pancaking somebody, I'm taking Steve Avila. A left guard can be fun to watch, and I'm enjoying every time we see Avila play. We hope he stays healthy and strong for another 15 years. Tremaine Ankrum, 25 snaps. Same thing. His run blocking was down from the previous week, but his pass protection was excellent. I think the dude's found a home. If Noteboom loses the left tackle job, which I think he has, I don't know if he's an automatic to go to right guard. I think Ankrum, I think the way they're playing Ankrum there, I think we're seeing him looking like an opening day starter up in Seattle. Larrick Jackson was solid across the board. I do think that left tackle spot is solidified. Logan Bruss played 16 snaps, twisted an ankle, sprained ankle. It's day to day. No bueno. I don't want him cut. I'm not done with him. I hope they extend him the same grace they gave Bobby Evans for 4 seasons. Dude's learning a new position, a little bit snake bit, and such. So I hope they stick with him. He's a Wisconsin lineman. You just don't give up on you don't give up on a Wisconsin lineman. You don't give up on a Big Ten lineman that quick, especially like Larrick Jackson, undrafted free agent out of Iowa. Warren McClendon, the draft pick out of Georgia, he graded poorly, but it's way too early to judge him on anything. He just, if anything, needs more and more reps. AJ Akuri, who had not seen any action, I didn't see him on the field. Well, I didn't see him get any snaps at the practice I was at, and then he didn't get any snaps opening week of preseason. He played 26 snaps, and he had a good showing. He graded well in the run and very well in the pass. Now, when we talk about those grades, those are the Pro Football Focus grades, and when you're looking at a quarterback, you know what a quarterback is. When a running back, you know what a running back is, a wide receiver is. And so I think you can make your own assessments, but I think some of those guys that play in the trenches, it's really good to look at those PFF grades. And sometimes in the secondary, it's good to look at those grades. They're treated like the Bible. Let's just say they're a good commentary. They might not be scripture whole and whole, but they're a good reference, and Akuri graded out well. And so that's interesting. 7th rounder out of Michigan State a year ago. Zach Thomas, the UDFA, dipped a little bit after a solid first week against the Chargers. He got 29 snaps. His run blocking dropped. His pass protection was solid. He still feels like a practice squad guy. It'll be interesting to see how things play out with him. Defense on the front line without Aaron Donald. Bobby Brown's numbers did come up a little bit, so good for Bobby Brown. Kobe Turner played better, but not great. He's playing nose tackle at 288, I guess. DeJuan Johnson, his numbers came up. Again, not great, but they came up. Couldn't go any lower. And Ernest Brown IV, he's just not popping, right? He's just not popping. Jonah Williams plays a little light, but he had 19 snaps and he was solid. Marquise Copeland was him and Laurel Murchison played 17 and 20 snaps respectively. They really didn't do anything to stand out, so to speak, and I really think you'll see some better performance out of these guys in Seattle and in other places when you see Aaron Donald lining up against them. And if Bobby Brown can keep climbing, doing better, Brown could be a really good complement to Aaron Donald, and it'll be interesting to see where everyone else plays out, kind of rooting for Kobe Turner here. On the edge, Michael Hoyt did a solid job holding the edge, but pass rush was zip. Kerr Thomas got 40 snaps. He got the sack, but nothing special. And if you look at his grades, he graded poorly. Van Valkenburg, what a great name, Zach Van Valkenburg. He had 37 snaps, and for a minute there in the second quarter, he looked like a lost Watt brother. The Raiders made him look good. He has some edge. He's an Iowa guy. You begin looking at him and you're wondering, one of these guys is going to pop somewhere in there. But we just got to wait and see. Nick Hampton, his numbers are good enough for the practice squad out of App State. I don't see him contributing this year. At corner, Trey Tomlinson is getting significant snaps. And I don't know, I kind of like that. You got Witherspoon, you got Kobe Durant, you got THT, and Robert Rochelle played 19 snaps. And he is, it seems like he's back in the rotation at corner. And, that's 4 deep there for the Rams. And we haven't even mentioned Darian Kendrick. So that could be 5 guys there at corner that make you feel a lot better than, say, Troy Hill, right? And so we'll keep an eye on that. Darian Kendrick is yet to make an appearance this preseason. We'll see how that goes. Sean Jolly, not working out. I think Sean Jolly is going to be ticketed to someplace else. Safety, as I shared, I think earlier, there is a comfort level at safety. John Johnson came in, played well, and then he's on the back porch with Jordan Fuller. That's really good. And then Quentin Lake played well. Russ Yeast played well. The Rams have some depth there. And again, when teams are selling the Rams short, you're talking about 2 safeties, Jordan Fuller and Quentin Lake, who are veterans who've played well. Ernest Jones, a veteran who's played well at linebacker, and then you're bringing in some showing some real good signs here at cornerback, and then you got Aaron Donald in the front line. This is not going to be a bad defense. Go to Arizona if you want to see a bad defense. I think it'll take time for it to come together. Okay, let's look at those draft picks for the Rams. I've been looking at 14 picks that the Rams had who look like they're NFL players. I said Steve Avila, Stetson Bennett, Puka Nacua, who didn't play, which means they really like him. Trey Tomlinson and Ethan Evans, the punter, who some people were complaining about, who he outkicked his coverage. Listen, when I got a rookie punter who is booming the ball outside and too far for his coverage, I'll live with that in the preseason. I just want a guy who booms the ball, right? If I'm a special teamer, I'm not going to complain that he outkicked his coverage. I'm going to go down there and make a tackle because I want to make the team. So I couldn't handle the complaints on Ethan Evans. I like him. Those 5 guys look like they're in. McClendon didn't play well, but he's been better at practice. He looks like a guy that's going to make it. Davis Allen, obviously, add him to that. And Zach Evans, add him to that as well. Jason Taylor, I had him as part of that. So it would take the number up to 9. I've got 9 of the 14 that look like they're in good shape to make the team. But he didn't play. And I don't know what the deal was, why he didn't play on Saturday. I do think Byron Young and Kobe Turner will make the team. We just haven't seen them pop at all. Nick Hampton, I think, is going to the practice squad. And Ochuan Mathis hasn't even played. He looks like he's going to the IR or something. And DeJuan Johnson, he's up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen with him. The UDFAs, the undrafted free agents, Jake Hummel in his second year. Hey, he had the pick 6, but he still feels like a special teamer, Troy Reader type, Christian Roseboom. The one I liked was Jaden Woodby, the heavy safety out of Boston College. He played 44 snaps, played well, and he seems like he would be a good complement to Ernest Jones, more so than, say, Roseboom or Hummel. So I think the team likes him. The team, I think, likes Tamarcus Davis out of Arizona State, but he didn't play well. I'm hoping he left Tempe with his degree because, I don't think he's going to see the roster. Jordan Jones played 40 snaps, the free agent out of Rhode Island, but he didn't play as well as he played the week before. DeAndre Square is another linebacker, off-ball linebacker, UDFA. He played well at 39 snaps. Cam McCutcheon battled, again, practice squad guy. Tanner Engel, who everyone was in love with in week 1, had a drop in performance. He only got 11 snaps. Tyon Davis out of Tulsa, undrafted free agent. He's practice squad guy. Quindle Johnson, practice squad. Rashad Torrance II had 36 snaps, had a couple of tackles, but didn't do anything else. All right, so we looked at the roster. We're going to go to the back half of the show here. Right now, those of us that are hanging in there and sticking around, thank you for staying with me. We're going to do the Kistler Law Rams trivia question of the day, and if I choke on this, I actually put ginger ale in here, and that's why it caught me off guard a little bit. It's not coffee today. So the Kistler Law trivia question of the day. Everyone knows the Rams' history of great running backs, right? From Dick Bass, John Arnett, the bull elephant backfield of Horner and Tank Younger and, all those guys, right? Everyone knows, okay? McCutcheon and Dickerson and Tyler and stuff. Stephen Davis, Marshall Falk, Todd Gurley. We know this, right? But if you're a diehard Ram fan, can you, without cheating, without going to Pro Football Reference, can you tell me who led the Rams in rushing in 1998? That's the year before Marshall Falk arrived. Who led the Rams in rushing in 1998? Was it A, Greg Hill, B, Robert Holcomb, C, Lawrence Phillips, D, June Henley, or E, Amp Lee, the old Florida State guy? Who led the Rams in rushing in 1998? Was it A, Greg Hill, B, Robert Holcomb, C, Lawrence Phillips, D, June Henley, or E, Amp Lee? There you go. I'm Joe Tarosian, and I was a sports writer for 21 years, and still am kind of a sports writer. I do RamView now, and I was one of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports. I also write books. This is my high school football novel, Tangent Dreams. You can find it on Amazon. I've got another one out there, too. I've got about 7 books on Amazon. 2 of them are football, and they got some good reviews. And the rest of them are of a Christian fiction nature, and you can check those out. And the reason I say that is because I do RamView, thanks to my sponsor at Kissler Law and Temple City Auto, and I write books because it allows me to do my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene, and we have a channel right here on YouTube, Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can join us anytime, and we'd be happy to talk with you about that. So that's what I do. That's who I am, and long time, of course, Ram fan. All right, coming out of the break here, well, not much of a break, Maxie Bond, who we've been talking about a little bit over the course of the last few months as a possible Hall of Fame guy. He passed away over the weekend in Ithaca, New York. He was 85. This guy in the 1960s went to 9 Pro Bowls. He was a 5-time second-team All-Pro. He was a 2-time first-team All-Pro. From 63 through 69, he made the Pro Bowl. He played 5 seasons for the Rams, 66 through 70. He was a George Allen favorite, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame a long, long time ago. And Maxie Bond, unfortunately, might be remembered as he was part of the Ramskins in 1970 after Allen went to the Redskins. He sent all those draft picks and Marlon McKeever back to the Rams for Myron Padios, Jack Pardee, Dyron Talbert, and Maxie Bond, among others. And out of that trade, the Rams did profit. They profited. They eventually used the number 1 draft pick to draft Isaiah Robertson, and another pick later on in the 71 draft to take Dave Ellendorf. So it was a good deal. Redskins went to the Super Bowl in 72. The Rams had a solid, strong safety and linebacker all for a decade. So worked out well. But sorry about the passing of Maxie Bond. Hopefully his family will get to experience hearing his name called to go to the Hall of Fame. All right. Also on this date in Rams history, August 21st, 1978, the Rams sent Monte Jackson, an all-pro cornerback, to the Oakland Raiders for a 1979 first-round pick, a 1980 third-round pick, and a 1981 second-round pick. And that was a heck of a deal. The Rams, Pat Thomas was developing. He'd become a starter. He was ready to become a starter, and after 77, and you had Rod Perry there. So Rams were sound at corner, and Monte Jackson was disgruntled with Rams management, and he went to the Raiders. He played well with the Raiders. He just wasn't great with the Raiders. He won the Super Bowl there. I think he was the other corner that played alongside Lester Hayes in his great 1980 season, where he picked off literally every pass thrown on the planet that year. I think he had 13 and another 2 or 3 in postseason. And so when Monte Jackson won a Super Bowl, he actually came back to the Rams in 83 in a trade that, ironically enough, sent Pat Thomas to the Raiders. Both guys failed their physicals. Thomas failed his physical. The Ram released Monte Jackson, brought him back for a game or 2. But Monte Jackson was a very good corner. He had a heck of a 76 season, and it was he was dealt and traded. It was interesting because that number 1 draft pick that the Rams got from the Raiders turned into the 19th overall in 1979. And it was George Andrews, who played well but was derailed by injuries in his career, bad knee. And in 1980, the third round pick the Rams acquired from the Raiders was Leroy Irvin. So think about that. You traded Monte Jackson, and you ran a few years there with Perry and Pat Thomas as the best corners in the league, best corner tandem in the league. And then you follow up with Leroy Irvin for a decade. Nice work, Don Klosterman. All right, maybe he should be in the Hall of Fame. The 1981 pick was traded. It was paired actually with Bob Brzezinski to the Dolphins. And the Rams ended up getting more draft picks in 81, and they ended up taking Jim Collins at number 43 in that draft. The rest of those picks were kind of used to one, they got themselves in position to draft Barry Redden in 82. Also in 82, they sent another draft pick that came from that deal to Houston Oilers for Mike Barber, who we recently talked about. Okay, getting into the weeds there. I understand. Sorry about that. Okay. Also on this date, 1979, the Rams cut Anthony Davis, right? They cut two players. They cut Anthony Davis, the USC guy. You go back, 5 seasons to 1974, and this guy, we're screaming he should have won the Heisman, right? The NFL doesn't view him very highly. He's drafted by the Jets, never signs, goes to the World Football League. He's playing really well there in 75, but the league folds, right? And so he ends up in Canada, plays well in Canada, comes back to play with the Buccaneers. But, Anthony Davis just wasn't NFL fast. The guy, when people watch Reggie Bush, they just think great, but there was something almost mystical about Anthony Davis. Maybe it was the games against Notre Dame or something, but there was just something that if there was something great was going to happen, it was going to be Anthony Davis out of San Fernando High. And he joined the Rams late in 78, and his Rams had a bunch of injuries. And I remember late in that season, everyone was on bated breath. They wanted to see him get some carries. He had a few carries, and I remember listening to the radio, just hoping to hear Anthony Davis get a carry. And I thought he was going to make the team in 79. Instead, he got cut. And the day he got cut, another guy was cut with him named Dwight Scales. Dwight Scales, you remember him? He was a special teamer that spent 3 years with the Rams from 76 through 78. He was a 5th-round pick out of Grambling, 155 overall, and 6'2", 178. He looked like somebody the Rams were going to develop, but he just never really developed. He was a total special team guy, only caught 13 passes with the Rams, only 56 in his entire career. Had a cup of coffee with the Giants and 3 seasons with the Chargers, mostly as a special teamer. And he finished his career in 84 with Knox in Seattle. But I remember my brother and I absolutely being stunned when Dwight Scales was cut. We were at the end of 78. There was a moment where when the Rams beat the Vikings in the playoff game in 78, they blew them out at home, I think 34-10. That was before another debacle against the Cowboys a week later. But they were showing Dwight Scales and Preston Denard laughing and dancing. And I remember my brother and I said, well, enjoy it, Denard, because you ain't coming back. There's no way you're coming back, Preston Denard. And the Rams kept Preston Denard in 79 and put Dwight Scales out in the street. And that's why I just always remember Dwight Scales. It wasn't like he was bad. He just wasn't a receiver. And Preston Denard is very much an underrated receiver in Ram history. And it was on this day that Dwight Scales was remembering. So, Tim, if you're out there, tell me if you remember that day. Okay, tomorrow is another anniversary, and it's not that big of a deal. I'm having a nerd spasm here. On August 22nd, 1971, the Rams sent a journeyman linebacker named Tommy Crutcher to the Detroit Lions for a 4th-round pick. Crutcher was just a guy who bounced around. He was a backup for the Packers' first 2 Super Bowl teams. He bounced to the Giants, and he was dealt to the Rams, and he never played it down for the Rams before being traded to the Lions and ultimately ending up back in Green Bay in 72 when they had their little resurgence with Dan Devine, Scott Hunter, MacArthur Lane, and John Brockington. And so the Rams in 73, 2 years later, exercised that pick. It was the 4th pick in the 4th round of the 1973 draft, number 99 overall. And the Rams acquired a tight end named Terry Nelson. Now, you're thinking, well, Terry Nelson's hardly a world beater. No, he's not. He had 8 seasons with the Rams, competent blocking back, contributed to the Super Bowl team. And by 1980, he had run out of gas and was eventually, that was his last season in the NFL. But Terry Nelson, you scored Terry Nelson, who was good enough to stick around and outlast Pat Curran, outlast Bob Klein, outlast Charlie Young because of what he did on that offensive line as a blocking tight end. And you got him for a guy that never played a down for you. And I just wanted to recognize Terry Nelson there and say thank you, because I know he watches the show, right? Okay, as we wind down here, week 4, the Rams are at the Colts. October 1st, 2023. Last week, I went with my friend Steve Ramirez, former sports writer at the Tribune. He's thinking the Rams have a shot against the Bengals in Cincy if Joe Burrow doesn't play. That's like September 25th, September 27th. I got to believe Burrow's going to be back. I went with my heart and my emotion on that one, and I went with my friend Steve that the Rams win that game. So I see them heading into week 4 as 1-2 when my head tells me they should be 0-3, but I'm going to stick to what I said. They're 1-2, and now they're going into Indianapolis. And this is a game the Rams should win, and they need to win, and they have to win. I'm not caught up in winning in Seattle week 1 or winning at home against Frisco in week 2. But going against a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, you know what you're going to get right now, his rookie year. Think of a very raw version of Lamar Jackson. The league knows what Lamar Jackson does. I think they know what to expect from Anthony Richardson, and the Rams should be ready to handle this. If Raheem Morris is the genius, everyone tells me he is, the Rams should be ready to handle this. When you look at the Colts offensively, they got a really good offensive line. The offensive line is solid. They're not spectacular at receiver. They got Michael Pittman Jr. And then at running back, they're supposed to have Jonathan Taylor, who I don't think he's in camp right now. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure on that quarterback. And so I see the Rams defense actually matching up pretty well against the Colts offense. And I see the Colts defense, which is going to be starting some rookies because some of the players there have, made some mistakes. They lost, was it Darius Rush? I think they lost. No, they drafted Darius Rush. Isaiah Rodgers. He was the one that got suspended and was ultimately released for gambling. Julius Brents is going to need some time. They did sign Samson Ebukam. They got DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye. But I think the Rams should have success against this Colt team. And I really will be disappointed if the Rams lose this game. I think this is the game they need to win. And I think they do win. I'm not going to give a score just yet. But I think the Rams win this game. And that would set them up at 2-2 going into week 5. All right. It will be a stone groove if the Rams are 2-2 after 4 weeks. And but the show's not over. Let's go back to the Kistler Law trivia question of the day. I know I've got 3 live viewers out there. I'm going to give you a chance to answer this real quick. Maybe you did your homework. Maybe you knew. Maybe you went to Pro Football Reference. The Kistler Law trivia question of the day is: everyone knows the Rams' history of great running backs, but do you know, without cheating, who led the Rams in rushing in 1998? Was it A, Greg Hill? Was it B, Robert Holcomb? Was it C, Lawrence Phillips? Was it D, June Henley? Or E, Amp Lee, the Florida State Seminole guy? Who is it? I'll give you a second there if you want to answer something. I'm Joe Terosian. Really happy to be here. Getting ready to wrap up the show. And I will tell you the trivia question. I don't want to wait too long. Okay. Who was the Rams' leading rusher in 1998? Was it Greg Hill? No. Was it Amp Lee? No. Was it Lawrence Phillips? No. Was it Robert Holcomb? No. It was D, June Henley. 1 season in the NFL, rushed for 313 yards. And you can remember how bad the Rams were in 1998 and truly the miracle that took place in 1999. So June Henley, who I don't think anyone remembers. I don't think he's any relation to Darrell Henley. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's the show. It was a stone groove. I went kind of long, 44 minutes, guys. I apologize. You let me know if that's too long, and I'll shorten it. But sometimes I have these nerd spasms, right? And I just want to share what I discover. So please hit like, subscribe, follow us here on YouTube, as well as on Spotify. It's really important. We're trying to build our footprint there. It's been a slow slog, and I think yeah, I think that's all I got. But if you could hit like and subscribe, leave questions, answers, reactions, those kind of things, I will answer the questions and as best I can. But to create interaction, create our footprint here on social media. Okay, folks, thank you so much for clicking on. You folks for hanging with me, all three of you there. Thanks for staying live with me. God bless. Take care. We'll see you soon.